The calamity has apparently came on Grand Summoners Global because Long is now here. I'm talking about crazy bleed damage buffs, accuracy buffs while you're bleeding, and also really hard hitting super arts and everything else, provided you actually supply him with the means to do it, because he doesn't actually have any innate crit chance or defense ignore, but as you'll see in the gameplay and everything else, that's not really that big of an issue since he's just doing so much damage right out the gate anyway. A huge shout out to my man Mystical Fire for letting me do this showcase. Without him, it wouldn't have been possible. So as mentioned before, Long is a damage dealing attacker. He's a bleed attacker. If you guys don't know what bleed is, I'll explain it to you real quick. Bleed is pretty much a status effect in this game where no boss really has a resistance to it. Every time you inflict a bleed on an enemy, it will reduce their damage res by 3%, and that's pretty much all the bleed does. Bleed is mainly a mechanic for your characters to use and not more so a debuff that you want to use all the time, unless you want to squeeze out as much damage as possible. So in Long's case, if an enemy has 2 or more bleeds on them, you get 150% damage. If they have 3 bleeds, you're able to also get 100% accuracy on top of that. Now you may be asking though, but how do you inflict these bleeds? That's a good question, and I'm about to answer that. With the skill, you're able to increase your art gauge. With the art, you're able to inflict disease if the enemy is bleeding, and with the true art, this is where you're able to actually inflict bleeds. In terms of the super art is where Long's damage is at. This thing will do a massive 180,000%, increase your own attack by 100%, and reduce the enemy's water res by 100% as well for 25 seconds. In terms of the slots on this character, we have a 5-star physical, 5-star defense, and a 4-star physical. For the 5-star physical, you have a few options here. His true weapon is insanely good, being able to give you 40% more damage. It gives you art gauge whenever you use it, and it also reduces the enemy's physical res by 30%, meaning that he's just going to hit a bit harder. However, if you want to opt in for something else like True Izanagi here to kind of work with his defense slot, or Curse Light Sword, you could also do that if you just, didn't want to buy this true weapon. Another thing that I would mention too is that if you wanted to use an equip that was a bleed equip, you could also do that in the 5-star physical slot as well. But me myself, I would just say go with this true weapon or go with Curse Light Sword or True Izanagi. If you're nuking with him though, go like super arch-gen heavy like Ashura or whatever else. With the 5-star defense, just make sure you're countering the boss. And if you're nuking with this character, change of pace or Black Trike. 4-star physical, you already know what we're doing here. B3 Claw in sustained teams. B3 Claw all the way. In terms of the crest slots on this character, it's very simple, man. He's an attacker. He wants to get into his true arts as soon as possible. So attack up and art gauge up. Unfortunately, we don't have the animations this time. I know, it sucks. But let's talk about this team comp. So the team comp we used in this video was going to be a Shiro, Emiya, Ainz, Haruto, and of course Long himself. With this team, we are heavily defense focused, but we are also heavily arch-gen focused and being able to provide Long with a lot of different buffs. Why I'm using Ainz here is not just for the crit res down and the crit damage buff and all that type of stuff. It's also because Long is a demon. Even though, yes, he looks like a human, Long is actually a demon. So when you're looking at this character, you technically could run him on a mono demon team with like Dark Vox and all them. This team actually worked insanely well, and Long did a lot of damage. We went up against the usual fight, Memories of the Comet. We had to actually do the mechanic in this fight. I know it's kind of crazy. I haven't had to do the mechanic in this fight in a very long time, but it's really not like a crazy mechanic. Long is a bit more of a sustained damage dealer. He's not meant to really like go super crazy right off the gate. He has to build up into all of his damage. And once we got that damage going, man, it was amazing. One thing I will tell you right here is that if you're using Long, don't worry about getting 3 bleeds on an enemy majority of the time. Sure, it will give you a bit more damage because it's 3% extra damage res down, and it will also give you the accuracy buff, but if you don't need that accuracy buff, I don't think it's worth wasting 200 art gauge on just getting level 3 bleeds. This man just does damage. He's a super arts machine once you get him going and you have really good arch-gen on it, and he's just hitting ridiculously hard with each one of these. This is kind of just what he does. He doesn't really offer a lot of utility to the team. I mean, granted, he does have that defense item slot, but like, he's just a straight damage dealer, bro. He is out here taking names. It's gonna get even crazier once we have characters like Holy Knight Roy, Hoka, and all them out. Yeah, we're gonna see ridiculous damage from this man Long just because of how high that modifier is. With the damage buffs and everything else, he's cooking. He's cooking, man. He really is. But this fight didn't really stand a chance. As you see, we kind of just dusted through it like it was nothing. And if we actually look at the damage charts, Long dealing 23 million damage. We went up against good old Emmy for the next fight, and this fight really wasn't anything much, to be honest. Just did our little thing, did our little dance, and Emmy got pretty much just completely destroyed. I just want to see Long again in some more sustain heavy content. One thing I will say though is Long is going to be absolutely insane in certain Summoners Road stages where you just need a damage dealer to just go in there and deal DPS. Yeah, we could definitely see that. The main issue with this unit really is, yeah, you could say the ramping to like the bleed stacks, but another issue is that just no innate crit damage or defense ignore really hurts this character. If he had some type of innate defense ignore or crit chance, he would be so much better than what he is. As you see, Emmy got absolutely destroyed there, and if we look at the damage charts, you know, we did our thing with the man Long again. For the last fight, we went up against Vits. I haven't done Vits in ages, but I was curious. I was like, I want to see if I'm actually able to do Vits with Long and with this team. I mean, Vits is an older stage, but it still is a stage with a lot of mechanics and a lot of damage is getting thrown at you. Literally, we died the first time we attempted this because, yeah, we didn't have enough damage res on the team. But once we got everything situated and we had all of our equips up, yeah, we were able to survive it. But even with that, it was still pretty scary, especially for Shiro. He was getting got like a lot. Like that man was at low HP this entire fight. One thing I will say though, Long being the Mr. Solo Dolo man that he is, he was able to do his thing. Like look at this first super art right here. Look at the damage and look at the HP bar just dropping, man. I was sweating a little bit in this fight. I'm not gonna cap, I really was. Even once Vits revived and put his negate crit chance buff on, yeah, it didn't even matter either. Like, I mean, yeah, we couldn't crit no more, but Long's damage just outweighs that amount of crit, man. He was able to do his thing, and overall, man, I'm just really impressed by this unit. He's a really solid damage dealer that just takes a minute to ramp up, and that's about it. He's definitely not gonna be able to hard carry you if you're like a brand new player, but main thing with Long is that if you're not able to provide him with crit chance or some type of defense ignore, along with giving him ample amounts of arch gen, because this guy is pretty arch gen hungry, he's not going to perform as good as other characters that maybe are a bit more hybrid, you know, in terms of like supporting and attacking, like War God Finn and all that. Overall, Long's a pretty good character. If I had to rate him like on a tier list, I would say he's probably like an A tier character, maybe like an S tier attacker, but it'll probably change up a little bit. Definitely solid though, and you could use him in a lot of things. Even nuke with him if you want to, but yeah, you just wouldn't get like all the extra damage buffs since you need like 2 bleeds on an enemy. But ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna be it for this video. Thank you all for hanging out. It's been your boy OP. Tell me down below what you guys think about Long. You guys loving this character? You guys not? If you heard my opinion, would love to hear yours. Also, if you enjoy this video, have me check out either one of the other videos popping on the screen right now. Great content, guarantee you love them. Oh, and one thing before you leave, don't forget to drink water.